Hello there friends and welcome for today's Warhammer Rogue Trader guide. We have all about the best story party members for a full 6-man party, including the best option for your main character. This way you'll have a party that can truly cover everything from the most important skills to, of course, buffing, debuffing and damage potential, single target, area of effect, and lastly tanking potential as well. Everything will be covered here. And all on unfair mode, of course, for the highest difficulty. And let us start with CASSIA the Navigator. CASSIA is, to be fair, without a doubt, the strongest of all party members. As a Navigator, she has access to all sorts of powerful and unique abilities, with loads of extra talents that only she can pick. That's right, no one else in your party, not even the main character, can pick the Navigator powers and also talents. And they are so good that your CASSIA can eventually excel at everything, starting with her offensive side. For example, she has access to abilities like Waking Nightmare that can mass debuff enemies as an area of effect and immediately drain even higher than 1000 hit points from enemies on unfair without any saving throw. With crowd control tier abilities like Point of Curiosity that force all enemies inside a massive area of effect to move to whatever point she designates, while also dealing damage to them. Perfect for a follow-up with more area of effect abilities, and guess what? CASSIA's main Navigator power, Lidless Stare, not only hits an absurd area of effect, usually half the map in one go, while also dealing great damage, capable of even higher than 500 or 1000 later, and stunning all enemies in the area of effect, which prevents them from taking any actions for one turn. To complement her debuffing side, she also has staffs that constantly drain all enemy stats whenever you affect them with a Navigator power, and of course it stacks, all without a saving throw or resistance. Lastly, most of her offensive abilities actually don't prevent her from attacking at all, which means you can combine all of the ones I mentioned before in the same turn. It's not all about offenses, however, because CASSIA is also surprisingly tanky, that's right. She can achieve the highest hit points of all party members by virtue of having its scale from willpower instead of toughness, with the ability to regenerate loads of hit points per turn and even achieve an enormous amount of dodge. We have higher than 700% here, which means enemies have a very hard time hitting her. Lastly, she just happens to start as an officer, one of the most busted classes in the game, which allows her to, for example, provide extra turns to your allies through either their Bring It Down ability or the most powerful one of them all, the Finest Hour Heroic Action, which is part of what makes damage characters so powerful, because you just keep on attacking again and again and again before enemies get to do anything. Even her main stat, Willpower, is extremely easy to increase through her very own talents, such as the Reveal the Light, Navigator ability buff, and most importantly the Mastery of Time talent, that increases it by stacking amounts whenever anyone gets extra turns in battle, so even early you can easily have higher than 100 willpower. The end result is simple, CASSIA is definitely OP and she can carry you hard. Definitely a must-have spot for any party whatsoever. Second, we have PASQAL the Tech Priest. Just like CASSIA, he also has access to a lot of unique talents no one else can get from his Tech Priest skills, some of which are quite powerful, especially filtering protocols, which lets him regain action points whenever using plasma or melta weapons, which means you not only will always have a free attack per turn, but also loads and loads and loads of extra area of effect attacks when buffed through the very same Officer Finest Hour ability we mentioned before, from CASSIA as an officer, for example. What this means is your PASQAL can definitely excel at damage, even melee-wise if you prefer through skirmish protocols, which provides an absurd amount of extra damage per melee attack. Second, PASQAL is also quite powerful for buffing your party members and debuffing the enemies, starting with his unique skill Machine Spirit Communion, which provides both buffing and debuffing, especially by reducing the recoil of your allies, amazing for burst weapon users, while increasing that of the enemies, the same for dodge bonuses. Meanwhile, his second unique skill, Machine Spirit Banishment, can highly reduce the damage of enemy attacks, amazing for debuffing bosses on unfair, where you do take extra damage. On the endgame, for example, you can even reduce their damage by half, that's 50% less damage taken from all their attacks. All of this will be further enhanced by his archetype choices. He starts with Operative, which is great for extra damage through enemy exploits, but also buffing and debuffing through, for example, Joint Analysis for more party damage, or Tactical Knowledge for more armor percentage. Later you can specialize in, let's say, Grand Strategist for even more buffing power through the combat tactics zones. And of course, the ability to always act first, as to ensure you will always have your buffing and debuffing before the enemies get to do anything. Lastly, PASQAL is also quite important skills-wise, as he's meant to be your main tech use and also logic skill user. And these skills, well, let's just say there are loads and loads of checks of them spread through the game. Overall, because of how many unique talents he has, just like CASSIA, he is definitely a must-have for any party. For our third best party member we have Argenta, the Sister of Battle. Argenta is one of the best damage dealers in the game when it comes to ranged weapon attacks, and she can excel at it all, from sniping enemies with single target shots, but of course, especially when it comes to heavy burst damage, for mass destruction as area of effect, especially when firing heavy weapons like the heavy bolters. But she can even go with flamers or melta weapons if you prefer. She comes as a soldier, which is one of the best classes for more range damage of course, and she can achieve multiple attacks even early through the run and gun ability, including one of the ultimate damage boosters in the game, Camaraderie, that lets her achieve even higher than a 500% bonus later on. With of course more nice stuff to buff burst and area weapons like Rapid Fire for double the rate of fire and Concentrated Fire for more damage. Later to the Arc Militant class, you can enhance her damage potential even further, to the max even. As a matter of fact, her damage can become so crazy that even with just the initial burst shot, and you have around 10 plus burst shots in just one burst attack, you'll already be able to one-shot enemies and deal higher than 1000 damage. When you add up all of the burst attacks you can perform in one turn, you can even deal higher than 20,000 damage per burst. It's really that absurd. On the other hand, unlike PASQAL and CASSIA, Argenta doesn't really have any unique abilities, so in a way, the main character or someone else could replace her spot. But the second best character for burst weapons, Ulfor the Space Marine, he has a lot of gear limitations, so he can't really excel, not in the same absurdly broken way as Argenta, still great regardless. For our fourth best story party member, we have JAE the Merchant. Just like CASSIA, she is also an officer, one of the best classes, but sadly you can't really customize her entire officer selection, because you can't respec her out of it unless using a mod. Which is kinda sad because a lot of the options here aren't really as optimal as one would like, especially for more buffing power. And well, CASSIA is kinda busy with her own Navigator talents and stuff to make up for that. On the other hand, JAE does get access to two unique abilities that make it all worth it, starting with Gunslinger, that can make her the ultimate dual-wielding pistol queen in the game. With this, she essentially has a free second attack with pistols on every single turn at no AP cost, including area of effect attacks from, let's say, plasma pistols. Not to mention burst pistol attacks as well, which is all further enhanced when combined with the pair holster gear you can find as early as you recruit her for 3 entire free pistol attacks, area of effect or not, on every single turn, something no one else gets to do. She even gets loads of extra buffs to pretty much all of her stats, including skills, dodge, critical chance and so on, the higher your character's reputation is with each of the main merchant factions in the game. And as if that was not enough, she is quite powerful for skills as well. As a matter of fact, most of her skills have high ranks, including Lore Imperium, Lore Xenos, and the main dialogue ones such as Persuasion, Coercion, and Commerce. Once again, she is an officer, which of course means she can always provide you with more extra turns just like CASSIA, and this alone is actually that good, cause officers just break the action economy apart. Now what about the main character? Well, I strongly recommend you go first with an officer and then a psyker for maximum versatility and power. This way you'll have not only nice enough dialogue skills, especially the most important ones like Commerce, Persuasion, and also Coercion, by virtue of high fellowship scores, as it is the main officer stat, with even more buffing and most importantly area of effect damage potential from your Psyker side, and ideally you wanna go with the Sanctified Psyker because of course of more buffs. Not just that, but through the Sanctified Staff that only they can equip, you'll also get access to one of the ultimate area of effect abilities in the game, Emperor's Wrath. This can deal even higher than 1000 damage as early as the second chapter of the game. It's how good it is, because your damage will be almost fully based by how high your Psyker's Resolve is, and Resolve is well super easy to increase through buffs, including your very own officer buffs themselves. As opposed to most other Psyker powers, which require Psi rating, something that is way more limited, especially as the main character starts with 0 only. This way you have the best of all worlds basically, some nice skills, amazing buffing potential, and of course, extreme damage potential as well. For the complete package, what's not to love, right? Another reason to have your main character as an officer is that, well, the first officer you get, CASSIA, as I said, she has a lot of unique abilities, which means instead of getting more officer abilities and talents, you kinda wanna rush for all of the Navigator special ones, because they are that good and unique to her. Now what about the last remaining slot for our 6th party member? Well, I designed this group so that the last slot is free, that is, you can go with anyone you want, as the core of our party is done for already, including even the classic tank character. It's just that in Rogue Trader, tanking isn't exactly necessary. Because of how powerful your damage potential can be, especially when buffed with officers, to the point where chances are everything will be bad, even on unfair, before they get to do anything at all. But it can still be done, and ideally you wanna go with either Abelard, if you want a toughness and armor percentage and deflection based tank, or Heinrichs the Inquisitor as a more dodge-focused tank, who can also provide some extra support and even area of effect damage through his Psyker side. He is definitely more versatile than Abelard in this case. So in a way, I think he's kinda better if you're going with the best party member for tanking. Second, you can also go with an officer mercenary, something I highly recommend, especially for the beginner parts of the game, during Act 1. I've already explained how powerful officers are, and with a mercenary, well, you have full, complete customization over all of their talents, abilities, and also stats and skills as early as level 1. And the more officers you have, the easier the game will become. Now what about the Xenos party members like Irlit and Marazai? Honestly, it's not that they are bad, just like the Space Marine. The main issue is these 3 party members are all very limited in what gear they can equip. Most gear cannot be equipped by them at all because of racial restrictions. Meanwhile, the same is not true for the rest of your party members, which is why, for example, Argenta kinda ends up being better than Ophir at bursting enemies, but they can still be quite good, it's just that they won't be the best. But like I said, you don't have to be the best to still be viable even on unfair, if you know what I mean. Well, alright friends, so this was it for my best party members guide for Rogue Trader. If you found this guide useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I highly appreciate your support. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.